Now, you don't want to live a life on this earth where you have a business relationship with God and not a love relationship. A business relationship is where you do your talent for God, you know. If you can sing, you sing. You know, if you can type, you type. If you can, whatever, teach Sunday school, you teach, you know. But your love relationship with God doesn't really exist. It's stagnant. It's, you know, and you're only doing things that you know how to do already. And you like doing it. The gifts that God gave us, we like it. It's because it's part of us. So we do enjoy doing what God asks us to do when it's in our gift. Or even some people leave church because they didn't get to do what they wanted to do with their gift, actually. So they had nothing to do with God telling them to do it. They just decided, I'm supposed to do this. This is why it's important to listen to God if you're leading people, because He is the one that qualifies people for a promotion. He's also the one that shows mercy to people. So let's say a person has really been not listening to Him and He relocates them. And He thought, okay, if I send them here or if I put them there, maybe they'll learn some things and then listen to me. But as a leader, you have to listen to when God says, I'm done. And you also have to listen to when God says, I need to give them another chance. Right? So this is why we don't go just by processes. And, you know, I'm doing this business degree. I just think it's hilarious, frankly. Because I'm thinking, it's a Christian university. Yeah, yay. But the point is, it's all by, you know, process. You know, like if this person is doing that, then you do this. And I'm thinking, this is a bunch of baloney. So I give them their research. You know, you have to back everything up with research. Pretty much every sentence has to have a thing behind it, you know, quoted, blah, 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 blah. And then, thank God it's a Christian university, so I do get to do a biblical perspective. Well, that's where I dish it all out. And there's really nothing they could tell me about it because it is my biblical perspective. But my point is, if you are gifted in a certain way, the Holy Spirit is the one that's supposed to lead you into things, right? So you may know all the processes in the world, which are fine. They're good for categorizing. It's all great. But it's needed for people who don't have a relationship with God, who can't hear God talk. They have to go the hard way. Right? Nobody could have told Jacob to cut out the bark, you know, do the stripy thing and the thing and all that he did. There was nothing on the earth that was written about that before. Right? God gave it to him. Nobody could have told Joseph what to do. God gave it to him. When it came to the 7 famine and the 7 years of flourishing and the 7 years of famine for Egypt, right? So you have to listen to God, even if you're put in a position where certain process. Every job I have ever had, this is how it went down. This is how it went down. And everything that was put into my hands were multiplied. 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 And evil exposed in grand style. And I didn't follow their processes, not by rebellion, but simply by a higher way that they loved, by the way, because it produced better results, right? So I'm going to give you these scriptures. You can write them down so you can study them. But let's go to 1 John 4:8. Let's go to that one. 1 John 4:8. I think I'm moving my arms around too much. I'm breathing a little heavier. It's raising my heart rate. 1 John 4:8. The one who doesn't love has yet to know God, for God is love. Do you see that? So if you have any category of people you can't love, you don't know God in that level. So if you can only love the people that like you, you only know God at that level. You don't know God at the beyond norm level. Do you see? Because it takes going above and beyond to love somebody that hates you. Right? It takes going above and beyond to still talk to somebody that you know just planned your death. Jesus with Judas. He had the Last Supper with him. That's where he was discussing. Somebody here is going to kill me. And then he disclosed, I knew you were a devil from the beginning. It didn't catch Jesus by surprise. But the point is, Jesus still showed love. Now, the thing about it is, when you love God, you will understand more facets of love. If you don't activate your love relationship with God, you're going to be loving at the world level, which is based on the senses. It's based on who did this for you, and then now they're the ones you're going to do back for, right? It's based on you can easily be manipulated to show love. That's a toxic behavior towards love, when you can easily be manipulated to show. So in other words, love doesn't give people their own way with you. Love gives people their own choice for themselves. That's an important distinction to make. So when you show somebody love, if you show everybody love, I show everybody love because I give them the right of refusal. So if they don't want to do something, then great. That's your choice. Have at it. But you have to have standards in your life that this type of behavior gets this reward. This type of behavior gets this reward. Jesus did that. How did Jesus treat the Sadducees and the Pharisees? Did he take them around ministering with him? Come, let's go to this healing meeting for which you have no belief that I could do it, right? No, he didn't do that because he didn't take on belief with him to perform something that requires belief, right? But when Jesus went to the cross, who did he die for? Just the people that followed him? No. He died for everyone, which included the people who actually made his ministry a misery. Well, they tried to. It wasn't for him. It was a joy that was set before him. But they did everything they could, right? Do you see? So Jesus let them decide what their relationship with him was going to be, but it didn't change his heart for them. You see the difference? So when you walk in love, it doesn't mean people can walk all over you. That happens if you have no standards. If you don't think that you are valuable, anybody can walk all over you. But when you have a relationship with God and you build that love relationship with God, you realize you are quite valuable, and the highest position in the universe loves you the most than anybody else. I mean, what else could you ask for? So all this longing for human acceptance goes away when you realize you have the acceptance of God who made every single thing. Like, how could you not? Do you see how your thinking can change? Yes. So when people do you bad, it's nothing. Your life wasn't riding on them. Your life wasn't dependent on them. Your whole, this is key to get. Because if you go into distress because of a relationship and how the person is behaving towards you, you're kind of like dissing God. Like your most important relationship. Look at how they're treating you. And God's there. Treated you the best you've ever been treated in your life. And still it's not good. You remember Hannah? When she wanted a son, and then her husband was like, why are you crying? Am I not better than 10 sons? Well, frankly, you're not, honey. Thank you. Well, it's kind of like what we do to God. When we're sitting in distress over somebody, a relationship with somebody, and God's like, well, have I not been so good to you? Like, think about what he did with Elijah. He's sitting there crying, oh, they're going to kill me. Well, what? Like, who are you working for? You're not working for Jezebel. You're working for me. Do you see what I'm saying? That's when his ministry he was told, hand it over to somebody else. Do you see this? God's jealous. We don't want to talk about that stuff, but God is jealous. There is God that's jealous. I mean, what does a jealous God do? He's provoked by our love relationship with him. That's what provokes him. You could mess up as much as you want to mess up. That won't take him off as much as you dissing him for somebody else. I mean, think about it. So the key, it lies in our heart, our soul, and our mind. It's the gap between God and the other person. That's the key here. How high above Pastor Doug and my children is God? That's the question I have to answer in my heart. Like, what's the distance? Think about Abraham. What do you think the distance was between God and Isaac? Think about that. What was the distance for what Jesus did? Jesus went to the cross and died. The people at the cross were showing him his mom and his dad, and he was telling the disciples, you take care of this, his mom. You take care of her. You understand what I'm saying? But he followed God and went and died for mankind. While his mama was crying there looking at him. This is a human side. Like her human son is on the cross. But this was the love that Jesus had for his Father. Anything his Father said is what he did. The question you need to ask yourself is, what are you afraid that God wouldn't allow you to do? What are you afraid God will take away from you if you surrender completely to him? What will he not allow you to do? Right? Your soul involves your mind, your will, and your emotion. Are you more emotional with a human than you are with God? Think about this. Who gets the best of our emotions? Are we always going to God crying? Oh, do we ever go to him and just hang out? You know what I'm saying? God, oh my gosh, like the sunshine. You outdid yourself today. Yeah. You just you went above and beyond. Seriously. You know what I'm saying? This is the time, God, God wants this. It's man that came in and give you all these rules and regulations about how you speak to the Father. You must. In Indian weddings, the Hindu religion, there's this lady that goes with the bride and groom for their first, I always forget what she's called. If anybody online knows, just put it in the comments. There's a lady that goes with the bride and groom the first night, and she has to stay with them for 2 nights. She sleeps in between them. They're not allowed to consummate the marriage for 2 weeks. I have no idea why. But yeah. So there have been stories, where the grooms would pay off the person and all that and whatever. But they go away for 2 weeks on their honeymoon and there is no honey and no moon. There's a lady sleeping between them. Anyway, I forgot what she's called. Anyway, there's a name for her. But that's kind of like what religion wants to do with us and God. You got saved now. You're supposed to develop this love for religion. But before you could do that, we have to teach you a few things about God. Like, really, I'd like to get to know him myself too. Like, can I just talk to him myself and have all these You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So if any of that teaching is in your mind, you need to get it out. Because it's wrong. Oh, I forgot what this woman is called. Anyway. And so you have to clear your mind. There is nothing God could ask me to do that I wouldn't do because I'm concerned about somebody else. It's never been a part of who I am. And I can tell you, I could think about things and God will just give it to me. I was thinking I would really like to eat some tuna. But I didn't have time to go to the store and get my own tuna. I come today and Miss Dottie made tuna. I went, well, look at that. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, God needs to get the glory when these things happen because he's the one that did it for you. Right? And he wants people to know. Esther, Queen Esther, she allowed God to use her beauty and her process. She went through their process to be put in a position in a country that God needed her to be in to save his people. What if she was one of those people that just, well, God, I don't know if I want to go marry some foreign guy, and he's a king and he already had a wife, and I may or may not get to be queen. Like, you know what I'm saying? When her uncle was giving her instructions, and she wasn't going to do it, and he said, well, who knows that God might have brought you here for such a time as this, but really, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to have to do it. Don't kid yourself that because you are in the palace, you won't get killed too. Right? Because she was of the race that they were going to kill. But my point is, she got a lesson out of that, and she adjusted. And she put herself on the line. She literally put herself in death's way. You know, and she could have died. But she put herself there to get this done. So, like, when was the last time you made a sacrifice for God? When was the last time you told somebody else no so you could tell God yes? When was the last time you said no to yourself so you could do something nice for God? These are great questions to ask yourself, right? All these insecurities, see them like little people getting in the way between you and God, if that helps. Yeah, they're little people running around telling you, no, 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 no. All they're saying no to is you can't connect with God. I don't want you to have a relationship with God. You and God shouldn't be so close. Because that means you and I are going to have to break up. Now, who do you think controls those insecurities? It ain't God. Because he didn't make you with any. He sure didn't recreate you in the born-again experience. Like, let's leave a few insecurities in there for her, just to keep her humble. Right? And your soul, your mind, will, emotion, your experience. So a thing you could do, I forgot who I heard say this. It might have been Kat Kerr. I don't remember. Maybe it was Kat Kerr. You could bind the plans of God to your soul. It was Kat Kerr. You could bind the plans that God wrote for you to your soul. So it becomes an attachment inside of you that you have said, come, I want you. I want the plans of God. And you bind it to your soul. So you start living from the plans of God instead of what everybody else dumped in your soul. When people are telling you stuff about yourself, when people are hurting you in relationships, when people are telling you bad feedback about who you are, what you're supposed to do, that gets in your soul. So imagine if you bind the plans of God to your soul and put that as the sieve or as the, I forgot what you call those things. But it's basically the check to accept or reject what comes in your soul. We're talking automatic stuff here. You get more time to spend with God. What is it? Filters, yes. Filters, yeah. Let the plan of God, from Psalm 139, verse 16 and on, he wrote about it there. Then in Ephesians, I have this for you, Ephesians 1:4. Before the foundations of the earth, he had a plan. Let's go to that one, Ephesians 1:4. Look at that. He chose us to be his very own, joining us to himself. He joined us to himself. We're bound to his soul. Even before he laid the foundation of the universe, because of his great love. So our response to his great love is to show our great love by binding what he said and wrote about us to our soul as the filter, the gatekeeper for our actions, our behaviors, and what we accept and reject from somebody else. This is huge. Okay? So your intellect, as you're learning things, it needs to be checked against what God said about you. It has to have a check and a balance. I'm telling you, if you would realize how much, you know when you're dating somebody and all that, don't you look better than when after you got them? Like, let's just, like anybody that's dating anybody, don't they get all dressed up and they're like all this nicey? Then once you're married, it's like, oh, well, they already saw me naked and no makeup, so. But that's if. I might have been too much information. But my point is, if you already had an identity that you decide, that's my identity, I'd like to keep it, thank you very much, then you would continue dressing how you dressed and whatever. You understand what I'm saying? But where was I going with this? I don't know. We got stuck on the... Oh, I know. It's because you were feeling this love for the first time from the person, you responded by the way you looked. A lot of times. You know, and even how they looked and everything. Well, God's love never changed for us. When we become a Christian, we don't have to look like some dried up prune. And like, well, also specially holy now we can, like, show him the same passion. It should even be better. Because you got to know him better. You will start to behave better. Like for real. You will be happier. You know, things will just like roll off because you and God have been having a discussion about it and he's already giving you a plan. You don't have to get all like upset about it. You know? And if you're finding that you're asking God for something, an opportunity has come, and you're talking to him about it, and it doesn't seem to be, working or whatever, you need to check with God and say, is this thing too close up there with you? Check and find out. Like, is this going to be too close to how much I love you? Like, there should be this huge gap, I'm thinking, but seriously, if I'm bringing this up, and keeping you out of the picture, let's get it straightened out. There needs to be some assurance from us that we ain't going to ditch him. That's a love relationship. God isn't insecure, but we need to know where we stand. We're the ones that need to realize what we're being carried away with. You understand? Ten minutes, okay. If you don't, I'm going to say some things, like you could write it or just soak it in. Or watch the video later. If you don't have a love relationship with God, you only have an employer employee relationship. It was the difference between Zechariah and Mary. He was in the house of God, lighting up the lights, doing his priestly duty. She was a girl still living at home with her mama, now going to get married. And check it out. He was an employee. She had a relationship with God before Jesus even came. You see the difference? Do you do everything you can to make God look good to people? Do you try to justify his badness to them? Like, let's say they think God is doing something to them to punish them or to whatever. Are you trying to make them feel better that they're being punished? Or do you make sure they understand God doesn't do that? Or it could be sowing and reaping, which is on your end, not God's. You see? Or do we try not to offend people if they are being disrespectful to God and we're trying to make... So we think if we don't offend them, they'll come to know Christ. That's the trap the enemy sets. That you better be careful how you talk to people because we want them to come to Jesus. Really? Yeah, I do too. But I'm not going to make God look like a fool so they can feel better about it.
Philippians chapter 4 tells us how we should think and the things we should think on. But do you realize that thoughts need an object to attach itself to so that you have an association for your thoughts? So when the Bible is telling us to think on things that are pure, that are kind, are you trying to think of those things with somebody in mind? And then you think, well, I can't think that way about that person. What you need to do is think about God in that way. And that will put everything in perspective for you. See, when you think of God as the purest, pure that you know, as the kindest kind that you know, as the holiest holy that you know, everyone else fades in comparison. So what are you thinking about today?